Well, Susie, it is great to have you here. Thanks for joining us for Tell Us What's Your Passion. It's a chance for you to tell us what you're passionate about. But first, we will want to take a wee bit of time to get to know Susie. Susie, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Tell us a wee bit about yourself.
Hello, hello. Yes, it's so good to be here. I'm Susie Taylor. I live in Waringstown and I work for Waringstown Presbyterian Church. I have been at Waringstown congregation all my life and been working there for, I was going to say 5, it's maybe 6. I have no idea because this past year has messed up everybody's time scale of
It has.
things. But yeah, I am the children's and family worker in Waringstown. I am 28, so I am, and yeah, that's about about it. That's exciting.
Well, for anyone listening who goes to Hamilton Road Presbyterian, we very few of us have been to Waringstown, but we feel like we know it well because our former minister famously went to Waringstown,
Yes, that's
Reverend David Johnson.
Yep, he actually, I was his very last baptism in Waringstown. Fact of the day for you. He
Uh,
probably doesn't remember that, but he
well,
baptized me
I
before.
almost guarantee you he absolutely does. And now you're in ministry. That is the power of the
But
Reverend.
absolutely part of his baptism right now. Don't cut that.
Absolutely. So we like to transition to this wee section, and we call it real reporting. We like to cut through a lot of the nonsense in the news media, all the fake news stuff, and we like to hit the nail on some real issues. Um, so we would like to gather your thoughts on a few things, if that's all right, Susie. The Irish sea border. Um, it appears that fish can just cross this border willy nilly. They can go back and forward. Is that something that you're particularly worried about? How safe is the border?
Oh goodness, that's dodgy. I'm not sure that we should continue to eat fish, to be honest. Like that is risky.
Yeah, there's no checks. Who's monitoring it? I don't know. Something about that. Um, and do you think eggs are dairy?
Um, I started to get really annoyed at I listened to your last one and I was like, he said yes they were, but no, like dairy things are from cows. No? Is that right? No, no.
We just want to hear what you think. You
I,
think no?
I think no, because dairy things come from cows is my final answer.
And is there anything you'd like to publicly confront Matthew Campbell about his views?
I just I don't know. I think he maybe no. I understand that maybe if he is from Bangor direction, that he is not used to the country lifestyle that we experience here down in Waringstown, but just maybe take a wee walk around the farm. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a food nutritionist, so I can't be 100% certain. But I think some more research needs to be done on this area.
Excellent. Thank you. And lastly, we like you to look around the room that you're currently in and pick the most interesting thing and show us it and tell us about it. Or you can maybe go to another room in the house if you've got something you really want to show us.
I
We've
mean, to
got,
suit me getting up, I can.
you can get
I
up if you want.
honestly, all I what I have right beside me is the Presbyterian Herald. So, big shout
That,
out to that. Great.
that's simultaneously the worst one and the best one we have had all at the same time.
um,
So, what's your favorite article on the Presbyterian Herald?
well, truth be told, the spring 2021 hasn't been read yet. But I will get to that. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody's favorite bit is the pictures in it, but actually, there are no pictures in this edition because COVID. Nobody's been doing any. Oh no, there is some socially distant pictures. So that's
And
beautiful.
have you ever had a chance to write for the Herald? Do you ever get your name in?
I don't think so. Something's ringing a bell about something about the AQA or something, but no, I don't think so.
Like
Not
when
not
you
that
did.
famous yet.
Uh,
Talk to me about YouTube, but no.
we're gonna get to that later.
Depends on what you see is more important, a feature in the Herald or a YouTube sensation. It's hard to know.
Yeah. Well, That's a good point. I think actually the transition. This is the point where Susie, we like to give you the platform just to talk about something that you're passionate about, something to do with gospel living, Bible teaching, theology, stuff that you do weekly, daily, monthly, anything that you want to talk about. But so, what gets Susie up in the morning? What puts a fire in your belly? What gets your, your excitement level up? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I probably have debated in my head lots what I wanted to share because I'm probably I kind of just dip my toe in a lot of things, and I guess I um in some ways just pour my heart and soul into my job. And so I will talk about children's and family ministry in a wee while, but I also am like what gets me up in the morning. I'm actually I love exercise too, which is a wee bit sad. So actually what normally gets me up is an alarm to do a workout. And I play hockey, but that obviously hasn't been happening for a long time. So I've taken into some workouts. Actually, I mean, I feel silly even telling Bangor people, but I bought a paddle board, but I have been joining the herds of people at Helen's Bay with my paddleboard and with my toe float for some open water swimming. But I mean, that's old news to people in Bangor, like. So
Been traveling to Helens Bay just to see.
well, so my boyfriend lives in Belfast, so I'm kind of like that was 10 miles kind of. I wasn't breaking 10-mile rules, if I was
Oh, I wasn't checking up on the rules. I'm just talking. Surely there's other
just
places
leave
in
comment.
Helens Bay.
But yes, I have been. I mean, Helens Bay is nice. I'm from Belfast. It's one of the closest
Okay.
beaches. So yes, I have been. If you see somebody rookily on a paddleboard in Helens Bay, it's most likely me.
And do you scream when you fall in? Do you give the big "Wah!" Or do you,
Um, Not really. I also have because I have been doing open water swimming. Like the whole falling in and into the cold water is not as a horrendous experience. Body has climatized to the cold water. But
and does your
yeah.
boyfriend do it too?
So Saturday was the first time that we both attempted to be one on the same board, and we survived all right. So we did. Yeah.
That's amazing. So does someone stand and paddle and someone sit, or do you swap, or how does it work?
Yes, yes. I went first because he hadn't ever actually done it before, and then yeah, we switched around in the water too without falling in, which was an impressive skill. But it is more fun on your own. Well, let's be honest. No offense.
I'll keep that in mind. If I'll not invite myself paddleboarding with you.
I mean, it's okay. It's just easier, really. It's
That's fair.
makes it harder whenever there's an adult on it as well. But
That's fair. That's fair.
it's fine.
You mentioned, I'm always interested. Most people who know me probably can tell straight away I'm not very sporty. Sports are something that have largely, you know, like evaded me, if I'm being honest. And for some medical reasons, which I like to big up, probably not as
Yeah.
serious as they are, but also I'm just kind of terrible at them. But being a Christian in the sporting world is always pretty interesting. You play hockey quite competitively, I understand. How does your faith? You can tell us a bit about how, like, what level you play hockey at, what your responsibilities are, and then how your faith, changes how you perceive that and how you play and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, totally. And I think so I play for Belfast Harlequins. They're in the uh, All Ireland Hockey League. Actually, side note, my mum came and watched me paddleboarding the other day and was so proud of me. It was ridiculous. I was like, Mum, I play hockey in the highest level I possibly can in Ireland, and you have never got on like this, and yet here I am standing on a board, and you are taking videos of me and taking pictures and sending them to all the cousins and everything. I was like, seriously, woman. So
She like running
yeah.
along the beach and all.
Yeah. So if you, like my mum, are not one bit interested or care that I play in the Northern Ireland Hockey League, you'll probably not want to continue to listen. But yes, play hockey, and I moved clubs just 2 years ago, probably now. And I think actually for me spiritually, that was a difficult decision in terms of I think so often in the Christian life we struggle with um, the idea of being humble and what actual biblical humility looks like, and the fact that that's not putting ourselves down, but being humble in our attitude. And as I moved, I think we were learning the memory verse with our kids: do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. And I was very much moving out of selfish ambition to be better and to play for a higher club and to get good coaching and whatever. But then we contrast that with the idea of my best for his glory kind of thing, and that's Sports Academy and George's tagline, and I had just been out with them as well, so I was literally sitting for ages being like, be humble but my best for his glory, like what do I do here? And that is something I think I just constantly debate, actually, and when you're playing, you want to be the best you can. Obviously, you don't want to let people down, but then when you find yourself like crying or not speaking to everybody after losing, like where's the balance in that kind of thing? And I am a super competitive person, so don't talk to me for a solid 24 hours if I let a goal in. I'm the goalkeeper, sorry. So I really take it.
Yeah, we should have clarified that. So you're the goalie.
we should have I'm the goalkeeper, so I mean, like, the world comes crashing down if I let a goal in. And but how do I show my teammates that I am there and passionate and can be relied on, but also that I have a much greater purpose in life, and that actually I'm on this earth to build his kingdom here and to be a part of God's mission here on earth. And so losing a match is not the end of the world. And my sole purpose for being there is to be like Jesus and to shine and to live for him. And I guess in some ways I just want to carry the Holy Spirit there and join in on what the Holy Spirit is doing in the club and in my teammates. But at the same time, I don't want to let them down either, and we train hard and we give our best for his glory and for the sake of the team, but actually just keeping in my mind that actually my sole purpose here is to point you to Jesus, and trying my best to do that with a humble attitude as well. But that is easier said than done,
Yeah.
Competition definitely brings out the worst side of everybody, I think. I definitely have moments that I regret, and more so not necessarily my teammates, but to people we have played. Like, I'm sorry, my stick accidentally hit you one day. It just happens.
20 meters away.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you got to be subtle about these things.
Tomahawk. So, I did a bit of research on hockey.
Okay, wow.
And I learned about one of the unique elements of it is how you take corners.
Mm-hmm.
Like a short corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but there's another type of corner, isn't there? There's two.
There's a long corner and a short corner. Short corner is also called a penalty corner.
Penalty corner. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
good research.
Yeah, that's one of the more unique things that I
yes.
from.
Long corner's not very intense. A penalty corner isn't the equivalent of a penalty in football, but like halfway in between, maybe. Like, it's definitely more intense, I guess, than a long corner.
Yeah, I think the whole sort of Christians in sport thing, I think often gets derailed by, I just don't play on a Sunday, and like that's sort of the big bit to stand on, and that's not a discussion I want to have here, by the way. But I actually think the reality of it is way more nuanced than that, and in those wee interactions, if you do
Yeah.
crack up, it's apologizing, it's showing humility, it's
Oh my
you
goodness.
know and it's not about being perfect or managing that, but it's how you deal with the implications of those things afterward, I think,
Mhm.
is far more important. And
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of Christians being involved in all aspects of normal worldly life and football teams, cricket.
Totally.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think it's really encouraging just to see people in there enjoying it, trying to be
Yeah.
their best. But
Totally, totally. And like even the fact that I work for a church and my role is very much so in the church as opposed to, okay, we do some stuff within the community and I would know a lot of unchurched families through that. But personally, having unchurched friends, like I wouldn't, because my life was consumed really by the church, actually, I would not have friends my own age not in church kind of thing, and so it's such an evangelistic opportunity, and it is definitely something that I really value, having friends in different circles kind of thing as well. Um and working for a church kind of helps that in some ways, because I have a what do you do? Well, I work for a church, and it's just a straight lead into,
yeah,
okay, well, what do you do? And they are very, we kind of, I guess, we can be so hesitant in being open and honest about our faith, can't we? And actually, um, I have found, certainly in my experience, like everybody is so open to talking about it and interested, and especially now because things have been online, actually that has been a real um I guess just window into what I do and what we do as a church. Like one of the girls one day was like, I was sitting at about 10 minutes in, I was like, why am I watching Suzie with sock puppets? Like, why am I doing this? And yet she just kind of fallen upon it on YouTube, on Facebook, and started watching it and was like, got glued into it, I guess. But just wee things like that, or just leads into chatting about what we do, but more so your attitude and how you conduct yourself and how you um how you react to different circumstances or whatever is speaks more volumes than what we would ever say maybe with our words too.
well, just from what you said, there's a good chance to pivot, um, to talking about your other passion in life that you've talked about. You sort of seamlessly woven into the conversation as working in Waringstown as a
Mhm,
children's and families worker.
mhm.
So what does that look like for you, and what are the key sort of foundations to that work for you? How does your normal week look like, and then like why do you do these things, and what do you try to do when you're working and putting on events and doing stuff?
Yeah, whenever you're saying what gets you out of bed in the morning, like I have never seen working in Waringstown like a job ever. It is 100% my passion, and I absolutely I just love it, and I'm so thankful that so I came out of university, I studied early childhood studies at Stranmillis, and I just went straight into doing the internship in church for a year, and then Waringstown offered me the role after that year, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for the opportunity, and thankful that I get to worship within a church and work with in a church who are passionate about children's ministry and passionate about our children coming to faith and having a faith. And I just finished my master's there with Belfast Bible College, and was able to do my dissertation then on children's ministry as well, and like contrasting a child's spiritual development with their cognitive development and things like that, and looking at the passages where Jesus says, do not hinder these children because theirs is the kingdom, and really trying to grapple with that and what that means. And so yeah, I have so many thoughts that I could share on like family discipleship and things, but I think for me, my one motto, I guess, within my ministry, and what makes me the most excited, I guess, about children's ministry is to teach our kids. It was actually a quote from the conference that we would have been at together a good few years ago. I think it was my first year. To teach kids big truths that they grow into instead of small truths that they grow out of. And we really we don't hold back, I guess. Whenever Jesus says, do not hinder them, I really try to take that quite literally. Actually, I never want to be hindering our children or limiting them, because I don't think they are capable of understanding, who am I to say. And actually, faith is nothing to do with your ability to read or your ability to write or even your ability to speak, I guess. Otherwise, we would be writing off people totally. And so, if a 4-year-old who can't read and can't actually read the Bible for themselves, but can have a faith that is understands who Jesus is and can live for him, and I want to make sure that I am not hindering them, and also not hindering them or limiting them on their knowledge of the Bible either. It's so easy for us as volunteers within children's ministry to stick to the stories we know as well, and stick to the classics, and there's nothing wrong with that, because there's no Bible passages that are more important than others or anything. But even within that, to teaching a story about Noah or Moses or something, but just teaching the story as it is and closing the Bible, and that's that. Or telling people to the lesson is just that we would share, or that we would be kind to others or something like that. Actually, what more is the Bible saying here, and what more can we be learning from it, and how is it pointing us to Jesus, and how is it pointing us to our need for a savior, and our need to make him Lord of our lives. So even on Sunday there, we began a new series. So we would do a whole church curriculum in Waringstown, where whatever Stuart's teaching, our kids are also learning as well out in children's programs. And we have kind of dipped into that always, but through the pandemic, actually, that was something that we just made a priority, because they were all obviously sitting at home watching together, and parents were required to do the crafts or do the discussion questions or whatever at home. And so parents felt a whole lot more equipped having heard a sermon on the same passage as well. But we began a new series there on Sunday on Revelation, and our sounding guy and everything, he called me down to the back of church just before we went live, and he was like, what are your slides? Like, what are your PowerPoint slides? I was like, I looked at the screen, I was like, those ones there. He was like, Revelation. I was like, yes. He was like, for the kids. I was like, yes, we do this. And he was just kind of like, and even our volunteers coming to church was like, how are you teaching this? And I think, I just love that so much. And that's what I am so passionate about, and what I'm so thankful to God for, the ability to take a passage and be like, right, how do we communicate this to 5-year-olds? How do we help them understand this? How do we teach them this and simplify it without reducing it? How do we make this accessible and understandable, but also not holding back and not hindering them or limiting them in? And so our adults come out of church with, yes, hearing a half-an-hour long sermon with lots of more points in it, but we've all got the same big message, and we've all taken that on board. And often I will say to our kids, I'm going to tell you a sentence or something. So on Sunday it was that Jesus gives the revelation, but he also is the revelation. He is what we need. And I was like, I'm going to tell you this sentence, you put it in your heads, you might not understand it now, but this is what it is. And it might not be that they don't understand it until they are 30 or 50, that Jesus is the revelation. But I want them to hear those words and try and process those and think about what that means now, and big truths that they can grow into instead of
Yeah,
small
I
truths.
think that concept of truths they can grow. I think there's often a very real sense in which we patronize children. I think that can often then affect youth work as well, that we think they're not ready to handle these sorts of things. And I think developmentally there are some things that aren't suitable for their age.
100%.
However, giving them the truths and the framework to grow into, I think that's a beautiful image of how we actually raise our children and our young people. And we actually, one of the things I'm super passionate about is not like engaging with the cliches of meeting people where they are, and I think there's a point of that, but really we want to invest in people. We want to invest in our children, our young people, and we don't want to make whatever that point they're at the most important thing. We want to be thinking like 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, and that truth that they can go into, I think is a beautiful image for that. Um, so I guess my question is, and looking at the whole church curriculum, which I think is phenomenal. I just think the idea of a whole family sitting around the dinner table, maybe 4 generations, all being able to share their perspectives on what was taught that morning, it's just absolutely incredible. Because I think, a lot of our ministries and even the stuff that like how schooling works, we're taught what to think, not how to think. But I think Christianity is teaching us how to understand the world from a perspective of our Creator and someone who loves us. So we need to learn how to think. And as you look at a young child through to a teen, through to a young adult, through to an adult, what do you love? I guess I know it's a difficult question, but how do you invest in that? Have you any other examples, or how you do that within your church setting, or how you're working on doing it, or any thoughts on that? Like looking at a young person or child the whole way through to adulthood. How does that look for you guys?
Yeah, I think for us that in a church setting, we want to just give our kids as many opportunities as possible, and we very much focus on the fact that we are a family of families, and our children are just as important as our adults, and the fact that there's big church for adults and kids church for the kids, like that's not a less than thing, and helping our kids feel like they belong in the building, that they can be in the building and stuff like that. Just simple things like that, so that they don't feel like they have to be there and be silenced, kind of thing. But then whenever they are in the building, I love kids' lack of inhibitions, I guess. They're not nervous, they don't hold back. Grabbing a mic and saying a prayer at the front of church doesn't necessarily faze them. So if we have family services, I'll just shout out, who wants to come up to the front and pray, and giving them that opportunity to and I'll also say to our parents, actually, if a kid is at the front, and things like Children's Day and stuff like that, if they're praying, if they are leading worship, if they're singing or doing something, yes, we can say well done afterwards, but we don't want to patronize them and thinking like this was a performance just the same as their school concert. Actually encouraging our parents and our congregations to thank our kids for leading us in worship. So if you were if you'd heard a sermon and you were walking out, you might say, well done, that was great, but you're more likely to say thank you for that sermon, it really spoke to me. And so saying that to our kids, like acknowledging that the Holy Spirit is working through them as well. And then just as they transition, and I think now more so than ever, spiritual maturity is all over the place in some ways. So traditionally, where they chatted about this at that seminar we were on, traditionally where a 6 or 7-year-old might be at, actually, if they have had no church at home for the past year, then they might be at a different place. Equally, some children, and we've seen that in Waringstown, where parents have really taken seriously their responsibility to be disciple makers in the home, are thriving, and actually we, over the year of the pandemic, saw 8 kids coming to faith, and I am I've no doubt in my mind that was because, yes, they were listening to me on YouTube and watching a video and hearing the same teaching as what they would always have heard, but they were sitting at home and they were sitting beside their mum, who is their safe place and who is their person who they can ask any question to. And so instead of sitting in the hall with 30 other kids and being afraid to say, I want to become a Christian, how do I do that? They were able to turn to their mum or dad or whoever was there and say, how do I become a Christian, or can you help me do that? Because as much as we know the Holy Spirit is at work with kids, they also, by the time they leave the program and have had juice and biscuits and have ran about the car park, that moment's gone in some ways on a Sunday morning. And I think that's fair to say that. And so yeah, we put a real focus on family ministry, I think, and that I mean, your family's always is going to be constant, hopefully, you know, and going to be with you from children into adults. And I was listening to a podcast last night, actually. I've been reading this book here, Family Discipleship, by Matt Chandler and Adam Griffith. If you're a parent or working in a church or volunteering, I can't encourage you to read that enough. And I was listening to a podcast last night, and he was actually talking about the statistics of children who walk, or young people who walk away from their faith, and linking that to sitting together in church as a family, and how even as 17, 18-year-olds sitting together as a family has such a massive effect on our young people. And our parents of our younger kids probably find it easier to do family discipleship at home. But I think actually, if we want our kids to grow up in faith and to hold on to their faith and to continue to live in faith, then parents have to be super intentional, you know. And I think there's a lot within different organizations at the minute that are encouraging parents to do things naturally, and, you know, just natural conversations that pop up, and as you're sitting at the table, just try to bring God into the conversation and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, like, that is great, but it's only natural if we're intentional about it. Parents have to be intentional. These conversations don't just pop up out of the blue. And it might be that we're intentionally praying for these conversations to happen, and then they do, and that is the work of the Holy Spirit. But I think we can't just solely rely on if there is an opportunity that pops up, I'll take it. Actually, parents have to be intentional about bringing God into the conversation, about praying together, worshiping together in the home. And that Matt Chandler, I think, talks about there has to be at least 3 moments within the week where something intentional faith-wise happens in the home. And I think that if you're listening to this and you have teenagers and you're going like, not a chance, like, it's not happening, I think we probably can be more awkward about that than needs to be, kind of thing. And it's not that you just sit down and open up a hymn book and start singing a hymn. If your family enjoy that, absolutely go for it. But a conversation, it might be for you just sitting down at the table together to start with, and then the next month, like, right, I'm going to start talking about Jesus here, you know, or asking my kids about their day and leading it into Jesus. And the next month, then, like, right, we'll start to pray together, you know, and just gradually helping your kids and being intentional to the point where it becomes natural, then, where it's not awkward, you know. And you have to stick at that and be disciplined in that and be intentional with that. So I think for Connor, our youth worker, and I, actually, our roles are just as much supporting parents as they are doing our programs and our jobs, you know, because I might see a child for 1 hour a week, even if they come. Obviously now they're booking in and only get every third week at the minute is what we have the space for. And so we have to be supporting our parents. We have to be encouraging them to take this seriously, but also we have to be discipling our parents too. You know, how best do we disciple our kids? Well, we disciple our parents. You know, we give them a faith that they passionately want to pass on, you know.
I think that's is so vital, Susie, and I really appreciate the way you framed that there. And I'll try and link that book down below as well. But yeah, I think very often I see, and as a parent myself, we feel burdened by a limited time frame. Like, it's you only really have their trust and attention in primary school. That's compromised.
Mm.
Secondary education, teenage years, and if you don't have them at that point, it's gone. But I think it's better, like what you're saying, to see it as a process and understanding that all these kids and young people are going to be different. So this might pay off 30 years down the line when you've
Mm-hmm.
imprinted the importance of all of these things into their lives.
Totally,
Um,
totally. And Matt Chandler talks so much about role modeling as well. Like your child is not going to love the church and see the importance in church and see the importance of Jesus and love reading the Bible if they don't see you doing it. We can't just expect our kids to, when they are 18, continue to go to church if you didn't love doing that yourself and you didn't, or have Bible study if you didn't do that in the home yourself. Role modeling is so important, and our kids are watching us like all the time. And actually, it's whatever you make a priority that your kids will see as a priority too. And if you're saying we just don't have time, we've no more time in the week, especially okay, the past year has been different, but as things start to open up, what's your priority going to be? And if you're telling me you don't have time for this, well then you need to make it your priority. It's clearly not your priority, and this has to be the most important thing for you. It's your call from God to pass on.
and I think um, like there's so many cultural things that I think have seeped into our understanding of children's and youth work, and some of that has been helpful, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it, I think, has robbed um, not only our parents, but also our churches of the responsibility as a church family, as we're all involved in parenting our children, our teenagers, looking after all aspects of uh, the whole of the family of God and wherever we're in. And I would love to see all those lines and all those barriers dissolved more and more. And I think it's going to be increasingly essential in a post-COVID world
Mm-hmm.
and for the future of the church in the Western sort of secular world. And is there anything that you think is really important for a church? I mean, we've touched on loads already, but maybe it's an opportunity for you to say something again um, that like a church family should offer or should be seen to be different in than maybe what the world offers. Like, for example, like good parenting in a sense is giving, really pushing your child in school, but school teaches the vast majority of it. But maybe as a church we're thinking, well, we're the most important influence in our child's life. What we teach them is more. Anything like that that pops into your mind?
Yeah, I think I constantly Waringstown is a wonderful place, and the primary school is an excellent school. But it's extremely competitive, and it's extremely middle class, and very much probably not dissimilar to Bangor, and that kids are very much pushed and doing everything, and music and sport and everything under the sun. And hear me, there's nothing wrong with that, but how do we equip our parents and equip our kids to be different, to stand out, um to to show a different way of living, and to be compassionate instead of competitive, and to be humble instead of trying to be the best at the detriment of others. There is that idea of my best for his glory, but at the same time, actually we want to, above all else, love one another, and so and I think one thing that I would want to challenge our parents with is actually, well, are you okay with your child, not that we would wish this on anybody, but how are you okay with your child being bullied because of their faith, or being hated because of their faith? And that's the biblical example that we see within the disciples. And I say that, we don't want to wish that on anybody, but at the same time, do we encourage our child to fit in, or do we encourage them to stand out? And I think the church very much so has to be like that. Actually, if the church and the I mean, as I say the church, I'm talking about the people, if they look no different to the rest of the community, then what's the point? If we don't stand out for our faith, if we look at person A and person B and they're exactly the same um, in their attitude, in their lifestyle, and one's a Christian, one's not, well, what's the point? The non-Christian is just going to say, well, I mean, it doesn't matter. But actually, we want from our youngest to our adults and our whole congregation, we want them to stand out. We want them to live differently. We want them to be constantly thinking of um, God's kingdom and this greater kingdom, and pointing people towards Jesus in how we live and speak and act, and how we just do things, and I think that in saying that, so we are as I say, doing Revelation as a series at the minute and looking at the letters, and been reading Francis Chan's letters to the church, and he talks about the church and how sacred it is, and how it is God's, like, it's God's kingdom on earth is the church. It in the Old Testament was the temple, and now we are the temple living here on earth, and we've just reduced how sacred that is and how powerful that is, and we want to be a people who take our role so seriously, from the youngest to the oldest, and live that out. And so, yeah, I think as a body here in Waringstown, we are just really passionate about people taking the God's kingdom seriously and living that out, and not just church being a tick box on a Sunday, but that we are the church. We are wanting to build his kingdom here, and we want revival. Like, we so desperately want that, and we want to be passionate and evangelistic, and be God's hands and feet here on earth. And so, like, as a whole church, just equipping our congregation to do that, and families to do that, and young people to do that, and just doing that passionately. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it sprung into my mind there. It's been a while since we looked at Revelation. It was actually the thing that David Johnson finished his ministry on. He preached
Oh, there you go. There you go.
But I think off the top of my head, it's the Church of Laodicea, isn't it? That's described as a lukewarm water, isn't that? And
Yeah.
that always strikes me as one of the most vivid sort of metaphors for the church. And it's because lukewarm water doesn't really do anything. You can't use it to cook or to cleanse, and it's not refreshing and cool. And I think that kind of, to tie it all up with Revelation, that kind of sums up really what we're meant to be as a church. We're not meant to be meh, and neither are our children or our
Yep.
young people. We're meant to be different. We're meant to have a function. We're meant to stand out. And if we sort of drift into this mediocrity of lukewarm meh, then we don't have the Church of Laodicea here anymore. It didn't make it. And yeah, Suzie, it's been an absolute dream talking to you. Your passion has been visible, it's been palpable. And but lastly, is there maybe just three things that we can pray for you or for Waringstown, and our listeners will no doubt be praying for this for you. So is there anything that springs to mind?
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose biggest thing on my radar, and something that we want to navigate well and get right, is just the phasing back into everything, into programs and into ministry, and how do we transition from church solely being within the home, and as a family, to providing programs and opportunity for our kids, but also keeping that focus on family discipleship, and parents having the most important role within that. So yeah, praying for that. And then me personally as well, obviously getting back to hockey, and I'm coaching hockey, and getting back to all the busyness, I guess, too, and just navigating that well, but still holding tight to the I guess more just different rhythms that were developed over lockdown, and better rhythms and less busyness, I guess, would be beneficial. And yeah, know that we are praying for you guys listening too, and praying for Hamilton Road and all that you're doing in this season as well. So
Thanks
yeah.
very much. And Susie, I hope you don't mind, but I think it's safe to say that you don't mind being contacted by anyone about any of the things that you've said, through
Yeah,
official channels, of course.
absolutely, absolutely. You can stick my email address in the bottom. It's Suzie at waringstownpresbyterian.com. You know, very original, complicated. Yeah,
That's what they call
absolutely.
a Ron seal. It just does what it says in the tin. It's
Yeah,
straightforward.
straight to the point. Yeah. Although the spelling of Waringstown can get confusing sometimes. But yeah, no, absolutely. Please do get in touch. I think also obviously Hampton Road is a big congregation too. But if you are listening and you are part of a congregation who maybe don't have an employed worker or whatever, then I get that it is it's my job to make resources, my job to think about these things. And if you would like support in doing that, especially if you're a volunteer in maybe a smaller congregation, then please do get in touch. Yeah.
Amen. Susie, thank you so much for your time. It's a goodbye from all of us, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.